Welcome to Happy Cultivated. Today's book, The Tales of Meadowbrook Hollow, Grandfather Rabbit's Scheme by E.W. Rhodes. Who wants to get some carrots? Alex hollered, twitching his nose and climbing to the top of the rabbit hole so he could peek into the garden. Not me, replied Steffi, his little sister. I've already eaten the better part of a cantaloupe. Fine, I'll find someone else who wants to have some fun, the older rabbit said, leaping into the garden. Alex broke into a run, hopping over 2 cabbages and a tomato bush, before tripping over a sweet potato vine that sent him tumbling. He then rolled over a patch of green beans past 3 rows of sweet corn out of the garden and into a neighboring rabbit hole. He spiraled downward and came to an abrupt stop when he landed head first on his neighbor's living room floor. Alex, mind your manners, Mrs. Brussel scolded. You know better than to come in before being invited. Alex sheepishly rubbed his head and said, I'm sorry. Is Rhea home? Before Mrs. Brussel could answer, Rhea poked her head around her bedroom door, skipped into the living room, grabbed Alex's paw, and pulled him out of the rabbit hole at garden's edge. The sunlight bounced off the vegetable leaves and into the 2 bunnies' eyes. Rhea squinted, then looked at Alex and said, I'm hungry. She darted across the garden, hopping over the sweet potatoes, past the tomato bush, and over the cabbage patch before disappearing. Not again, Alex yelled. Where are you? Don't hide from me. You know that we need to be careful because the farmer and his dog are always trying to catch us. Alex searched the garden for his friend. Eventually, he saw Rhea's cottontail poking out from inside a large watermelon. Oh, there you are, said Alex, relieved. Rhea, we need to be more careful. Rhea didn't answer. Alex could hear munching sounds. He grabbed her back legs and pulled his friend from the massive fruit. But Alex, this melon tastes so good, Rhea yelled, diving headfirst back into the melon. Alex again reached for his friend, but before he could grab her, he heard a loud growl from behind him. His heart started beating fast, and before he could move, he felt something grip his rear right leg. It was Sam, the farmyard collie. Run, Rhea, run! Alex screamed. Rhea pulled herself from the melon, grabbed one last pawful of fruit, and scampered across the garden. Sam dropped Alex and dashed after Rhea. Just as Sam reached for the bunny, Rhea dove into a tunnel that led to her home. Immediately, the collie spun around and charged across the garden toward Alex. Alex raced through acres of soybeans, an enormous field of hay, and around a small pond. He was so scared that tears sprang from his eyes as he darted between the cows and sheep grazing in the pasture. Finally, the chase was over. The collie had trapped the small bunny against the back of a big red barn. Sam slowly stepped toward Alex, stretched his mouth wide open, and just before Sam's sharp teeth clamped closed, Alex was pulled by the ear between 2 loose boards and into the barn. The collie lunged forward, poked his nose inside the barn, and snapped his teeth. Alex was far from the dog's reach, however, and Sam was too big to slip between the boards. Thank you very much, said Alex, turning around and smiling at the large hen who had saved him. It's not over yet, the hen squawked. Alex turned and saw Sam charge through the sliding door at the front of the barn. With a swoop of her beak, the hen snatched up the small bunny and tossed him into her nest. She then hopped onto the nest and clucked loudly at the collie. Sam circled the fat hen, baring his teeth and growling. Farmer Groucher heard the ruckus. He scurried into the barn and yelled, Sam, get out of there! Leave them birds alone! Sam whimpered and scrambled out of the barn. The farmer chased after the dog, swinging his pitchfork. After a few moments, the hen sprang from her nest. Are they gone? asked Alex. Sam won't be back for ages, the hen replied. But Groucher will be back this evening to feed us. To feed you? The little rabbit asked. You ask a lot of questions, the hen clucked. I'm sorry, Alex apologized. This all seems strange. A farmer feeding animals? Why wouldn't a farmer feed animals? The hen asked. Farmer Groucher has never fed me, the bunny said. In fact, whenever he sees me eating his fruit and vegetables, he tries to shoot me. You're an odd little fellow, the hen said. Who are you anyway? I'm Alex, the bunny replied. I live on the far side of Meadowbrook Hollow at Garden's Edge, next to Farmer Groucher's garden. Who are you? I am Myra, the wisest of all the hens, the large bird boasted. You won't be for long, a younger hen squawked. Groucher says he's fixin' to have you for dinner. Myra turned to the smaller bird, pecked her sharply on the head and warned, Get back to your nest, Kayla. What does she mean by that? Alex asked. Farmers raise hens either for eggs or for meat, Myra explained. When a hen gets older and isn't able to lay many eggs, farmers think they aren't worth their keep. How many eggs do you lay? Alex asked. Usually 2 a week, the hen replied. But I'm good at fooling Groucher. I hop on a younger hen's nest when no one is looking so that Groucher thinks I laid someone else's egg. You'll get caught! You'll get caught! Kayla squawked from her nest. You better watch out yourself, Kayla, Myra warned. I heard Groucher complaining that there's no money in eggs anymore. He says that if things don't change, he's getting rid of all of us. There won't be a hen left in Meadowbrook Hollow. Kayla shivered and buried her head in her wing. You can come live with me, Alex told his new friend. Thank you very much, Myra responded, but a hen can't live underground. There must be something we can do, Alex said. Don't worry about me, little fella, Myra answered. You've got enough problems with Groucher and Sam. But you saved my life, and I want to do something for you, the bunny replied. Nothing would please me more than knowing you have got home safely, the hen said. I can hear the truck leaving. Groucher and Sam will be heading for town. There won't be a safer time. You'd best be off. Alex hopped to the back of the barn and nudged at the boards with his nose until he found the loose ones. Before pushing his way outside, he turned to Myra, twitched his whiskers, and said, Thanks again. I'm gonna miss you. Be off with you, my friend, the hen clucked. Your family must be worried about you. Can I visit you? Alex asked. Only if you're careful, Myra squawked. Now run along. Alex darted across the pasture, around the pond, through the field of hay, over acres of soybeans, and back to Garden's Edge. Never once did he look back. In the garden, the grand search for Alex was already underway. Alex's mother, grandfather, and sister, as well as Mrs. Brussels and Rhea, had begun scouring the garden for him. Here he comes! Here's Alex! Steffi yelled when she saw him. Are you okay? Alex's mother cried, hugging him. It's good to be home, Alex replied. I am okay. Did Sam catch you? Rhea asked her friend while she nibbled a large red tomato. Almost, but Myra saved me, Alex explained. Myra? Who's that? Mrs. Brussels asked. She's a big hen, answered Alex. She lives in Groucher's barn. The barn? Grandfather Rabbit asked. Haven't been there since I was a boy. Alex's mother looked at her son and said, He looks hungry and tired. I think we've asked him enough questions. Alex ate 3 carrots, a turnip, and 4 radishes before he snuggled into his bed. Before long, he had drifted to sleep and was dreaming about Myra. However, the dreams melted into nightmares, filled with terrible outcomes for the hen. At about midnight, Grandfather Rabbit awoke to the sound of whimpering coming from Alex's bed. What's wrong, little fella? The old rabbit asked. Alex sat up, hugged his grandfather, and asked, Why are farmers so mean? What do you mean? Asked Grandfather Rabbit. Well, Groucher is always trying to shoot us, Alex said. "He's just protecting what's his," explained Grandfather Rabbit. "You'd do the same. Remember when you pulled Rhea's tail because she took your carrot?" "But why would Groucher want to get rid of the hens?" Alex asked. "They might be getting too expensive to feed," Grandfather Rabbit suggested. "I feel really bad. I think he's going to kill Myra," said Alex. "She saved my life. I must try and save hers." Maybe I can figure out something," Grandfather Rabbit whispered. "Now go back to sleep." "Have you come up with a plan yet?" Alex asked his grandfather. It was the next morning and his grandfather was pacing around the garden. "I've got an idea," his grandfather replied, "but we're gonna need help." "Steffi and Rhea will help," Alex responded. "Go fetch them," Grandfather Rabbit replied, taking a bite of melon. The old rabbit was settled on a head of cabbage when Alex, Steffi, and Rhea climbed out of a tunnel that led from the Brussels home and into the garden. "We're ready," Steffi shouted to her grandfather. "Get me 2 big watermelons, 4 honeydews, 8 cornstalks, 20 feet of grapevines, and a pointed carrot," Grandfather Rabbit said to the bunnies. "Yippee! We're gonna have a party!" Rhea exclaimed. "They're not to eat," the old rabbit scolded. "Now hurry along." The bunnies bustled about, gathering the supplies before returning to Grandfather Rabbit. "I'm hungry," Rhea whined as she dragged the cornstalks across the garden. "Wonderful! I've got the perfect job for a hungry bunny," said Grandfather Rabbit. "You can split the watermelons in half and hollow out their insides. That should fill you up." Rhea dove on the larger of the 2 watermelons and began feasting on it. Steffi and Alex dragged 20-foot-long pieces of grapevine over to Grandfather Rabbit, who was sitting by a pile of cornstalks, honeydew melons, and watermelons. "Just what I need," the old rabbit said, taking one of the pieces of vine. He then connected a honeydew to a cornstalk. "Is that a melon sickle?" Rhea asked. "No time for foolish questions," the old rabbit said as he wrestled a watermelon half between the 2 cornstalks. "Give me a hand." Grandfather Rabbit then secured the 2 cornstalks, a honeydew, and watermelon half together, and then raised the free ends of the 2 cornstalks. "It's a wheelbarrow!" Alex hooted. "No," the old rabbit replied. "It's a melon barrow." "There's enough supplies for 3 more," Grandfather Rabbit said. "What are we waiting for?" The 3 bunnies eagerly assembled their carts. "What do we do now?" Steffi asked when they were all completed. "Everyone pick up a melon barrow," Grandfather Rabbit instructed. "Alex will lead the way." Alex rolled his melon barrow to the edge of the garden, made sure that Farmer Groucher and Sam were nowhere to be seen, then looked at his grandfather and the 2 bunnies and commanded, "Follow me." He led Steffi, Rhea, and Grandfather Rabbit in single file through the soybeans, the field of hay, around the pond, and finally through the pasture. It was early evening when they reached the back of the big barn. "How do we get in?" Grandfather Rabbit asked. Alex found the loose barn boards and pried his way into the barn. "You 2 wait here," the old rabbit told Steffi and Rhea as he followed Alex. Grandfather Rabbit and Alex tiptoed to Myra's nest. "We came to save you," Alex whispered. "You know I can't live underground," Myra reminded him. "Who said anything about living underground?" Grandfather Rabbit asked. "Tell each of the hens to roll their eggs to the back of the barn." "Why?" Myra questioned. "Just do as I say," Grandfather Rabbit demanded. "We don't have much time." After arguing with Kayla, Myra eventually convinced all the hens to give up their eggs. One by one, they each rolled their eggs to the back of the barn, and one by one, Alex and Grandfather Rabbit passed each egg to Steffi and Rhea, who carefully set them in the melon barrows. When the last egg was passed and the melon barrows were full, Myra asked, "What now?" "Trust me," said Grandfather Rabbit. He raised the cornstalk handles of his melon barrow and then followed the 3 bunnies on the long trek back to the garden. Alex's mother and Mrs. Brussel were anxiously waiting in the garden, when Grandfather Rabbit and the bunnies arrived with the melon barrows filled with eggs. "Do you think we have enough time?" Mrs. Brussel asked Grandfather Rabbit. "It's almost midnight." "If everything is ready, we should have time," the old rabbit assured her. "We're ready," Alex's mother smiled. She pointed to the 6 grass paint brushes she had made. Next to them lay 6 honeydew melons, all halved and filled with different vegetable and fruit juices that had been stored for the Easter punch. "We'd better hurry. Tomorrow is Easter." Rhea grabbed a honeydew melon and began to gulp down the juice. "Stop!" Mrs. Brussel yelled. "That juice is for the eggs." Rhea apologized. Then each of them picked up a grass brush and began painting the eggs with bright colored juices. "I like the blueberry juice best," Alex said, holding up a delightful blue egg that he had just painted. "They're all beautiful," Steffi said, dipping her grass brush into a melon filled with deep red tomato juice. Once all the eggs were painted, they were gently placed back into the melon barrows. The eggs glistened in the moonlight as the 3 bunnies and Grandfather Rabbit began their Easter Eve journey. They visited neighboring towns, hiding eggs carefully as they went. The following morning, children cheered as they found colored eggs hidden under bushes and trees. "Easter eggs!" one of the children shouted. "Easter eggs! Easter eggs!" Children everywhere began to chant, spreading news of an Easter miracle throughout the world. Later that day, word of the colored eggs spread to the Groucher farm. "Why can't my hens lay beautiful eggs?" Farmer Groucher wondered as he opened his barn door. All of the hens, including Kayla, began to shudder as he approached Myra. However, as Myra was lifted from her nest, cheers filled the room. In her nest lay the most beautiful egg ever. "I guess eggs aren't such a bad business after all," Groucher said, admiring it. Alex peeked out from behind a bale of hay and winked at Myra. The following Easter Eve, and every Easter Eve since then, Grandfather Rabbit, Alex, Steffi, and Rhea will their melon barrows to the big barn. After a long debate with Kayla, Myra coaxes all the hens into giving up their eggs, and each Easter Eve, Alex's mother and Mrs. Brussel help Grandfather Rabbit and the bunnies paint the eggs with wonderful colors. Easter days are always magical as children awaken to the marvel that beautiful colored eggs bring to the world.
Thank you for reading with Happy Cultivated.
Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Happy reading!